Hello and welcome to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. I guess it was probably about a month and 2 weeks ago, we were in Halifax. On our way back, we decided to make a video in my truck, and we talked about NHL coverage, blackouts, how we watch hockey. And my issue was that I can't watch Canadiens games on Game Center because I'm in a blacked out Canadiens area, so I have to have cable, normal cable, to watch Canadiens games. But I want to watch all the other teams, and if I want to do that, I have to get Game Center. So there's a bit of a balancing act. A lot of other people in the same situation, just in different parts of North America, and not only just North America, all around the world. We asked you guys at home to leave your comments, your feedback, and let us know your situation. What's your team? Who do you cheer for? How do you watch their games? What kind of hurdles you have to get over to make that happen? You have a list of brilliant comments. People took their time to leave comments and their experiences and their thoughts. So I would love for you to read some to me. We can share it back with you guys. So this is a follow-up video to the previous video that we did a couple months ago or a month ago. And if you haven't watched that, go watch that first. And yeah.
You folks are amazing. I want to recognize that right away. You took a lot of time from all around the world to describe what the hockey watching environment is like in your locality. And what challenges you encounter when you're traveling, just like we do. It's amazing how we all have the same frustration with this, because what we're experiencing here in our part of Canada is similar to what they're experiencing in certain parts of the U.S. There are some places that are magical golden places because they're in a zone that maybe is a mixture of 3 or 4 different teams.
Yep.
Like if you're looking at the New York metropolitan area, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers all lay partial claim to you. So you can be a bit of a free agent with your TV watching. But up in Canada particularly, and some parts of the U.S., you're in territories. Like we're in the Montreal Canadiens territory.
We are, yeah.
So other fans have had their experiences and how they watch hockey and how happy they are with the amount of hockey they're able to watch, of the teams they're able to watch. These are comments that were from YouTube, so you've already used your name, and I've used your name, so if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and attribute some of these comments to the people who wrote them. Early on, after we first released the video back last month, we had several immediate write-ins, and I got those first. Joe, who I think is a Detroit fan.
Yes.
Yeah, Joe wrote, "In general, it's pretty lame." He talked about his. He said, "I have a good sports package, but I still have to go on an adventure to find a game. The NBC coverage has been okay, but hockey coverage on NBC won't ever be as great as other American coverage." So he's saying, you know, the networks don't cover hockey to the quality and degree that they cover other sports.
Yeah, football will always have amazing
Football,
coverage.
Baseball,
yeah.
Basketball. You know, it's nothing for NBC to drop everything and run a basketball second-round game on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Chance to think they'd ever do that for an NHL second-round game on a Tuesday night?
Probably not.
Not on your life. So there you go. Shane writes in, "I think that the NHL needs to promote their sport better worldwide. Apart from Canada and some major cities in America, there isn't a market for the sport unless you're a die-hard fan. American football is easily the fastest-growing sport in the UK, where Shane is from, but the NHL needs to take the NFL route and try to come over to the UK for games and help grow the game by having people attend them in person."
Well, that's actually that's what they're doing this year or soon. I believe there's a game in Sweden, Colorado versus Ottawa, I believe.
I think so.
I think it's a preseason game.
No,
it's a regular season game.
Regular season game,
There's a preseason game in China.
Right. A couple of preseason games in China. And so it's not the UK. Sweden obviously is not the UK. But the NHL is making outreach into Europe.
Yes.
Not the first time they've done that.
It's not.
And hopefully it won't be the last.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hex Hockey writes, "I'd rather have games on NBC more than, say, ESPN, because just about everyone has NBC and not everyone has ESPN.
That's a good point.
So it's better for the NHL to be with NBC. And that is true, although everyone has NBC, the main network, where you're going to get some games on weekends later in the season, maybe some playoff games. But not everybody has NBCSN.
Right.
You know, which is like the sports arm.
Yeah, NBC Sports or whatever.
And ESPN is the ABC sports arm, because ESPN is owned by ABC. So, you know, it's not a whole lot different, I think, in the big picture. But
and I think the NHL and the NBC are starting the negotiation process of the contract that's just about to renew between the NHL and NBC. It's going to be huge. It's going to be billions of dollars. It'll be very curious to see for the coverage after that point in the new contract for the American viewers or NBC viewers.
But I take Hex Hockey's point. You know, NBC being a bigger network is going to sometimes at least give the game more exposure than they would have had they been on ESPN, like they would have been in the past. He also goes on to say what ticks most hockey fans off is the very lack of coverage from ESPN. For instance, NHL games are hardly ever on SportsCenter. And you know, if you're a sports fan generally in the U.S., you probably have ESPN in your package. But if you're watching, you know, an hour-long show of ESPN, what's gone on in sports this past day, and there might be 20 NHL, well, not 20, let's say 15 NHL games, they won't even talk about it.
No, they'll talk about golf or something.
Yeah, it'll be golf or, you know, or high school football or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
So he makes a good point there. I think probably it's ESPN saying, you don't want us broadcasting your games, and we won't broadcast anything. You know?
Why do they have a French accent?
I don't know. It's from Monty Python. I blow my nose at you from the Holy Grail. But anyway, Hex Hockey then goes on to write, because there's a bit of a to and fro in the YouTube comments, and admits the NHL certainly doesn't need ESPN, but ESPN actually could perhaps need the NHL if they're going to go. So he also talked about the NHL playing games in Europe and maybe even Australia sometimes, and they're also doing exhibition games in Asia. And he says, and it's just an interesting take on this issue, maybe the NHL not being in the Olympics, maybe they could do more on their own in the international side.
Instead of the Olympics.
Yeah. And he says, we all know this, we all know Bettman isn't dumb, which is absolutely true. Yeah, so, you know, it's his generation, and he says he's the same age as Austin Matthews, they're only identifying with the NHL coverage on NBC because that's who's been broadcasting the game since they've been growing up. They don't remember, or they don't, you know, recall certainly ESPN.
Yeah, and for us, I guess you grew up in a different time, but you grew up with CBC. I grew up with CBC, and now it's TSN started to play games 20, 25 years ago. Now it's all Rogers.
Rogers, Rogers, wall-to-wall Rogers. Joe then writes, because the conversation started on YouTube, basketball or baseball, they have the same game on like 50 different channels, but hockey, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
Yeah. Brandon wrote, he grew up in South Carolina, and hockey just wasn't talked about in his circle of friends and around his dinner table. The only people that sports really pay attention to down there were college football, NFL, tiny bit of Major League Baseball. You know, it wasn't until 2011 where I read an ESPN headline reading Bruins win. And his high school mascot at the time was the Bruins. And he related this high school Bruins name with the Boston Bruins. And that's, you know, a connection that he was able to make. He's since learned basically all he knows about hockey from watching us.
Wow.
Particularly you.
Not me.
So that's a lot of responsibility. Now he has Sling TV, so he has the NHL Network on his Sling TV, and he's going to be able to watch something during the regular season. I don't know if he's sure what. Gary writes and says, you know, the whole NHL exposure in the U.S., it's definitely a mixture of both NHL and also TV companies not pushing the game enough. And he talks about the UK as well. The NFL, much like Shane said, the NFL, you know, actually put teams into, you know, I think they played a big game at Wembley Stadium or something.
They did.
And they had like 100,000 people watching, and the place was packed. And frankly, you know, I don't think NFL is nearly as exciting as soccer would be, but anyway. So, you know, he does go on to make the point that in the UK, they are a nation of sports lovers.
Absolutely.
They love sports, big time.
Huge.
And the NFL is tapping into that. And the NHL maybe isn't doing enough just yet. Okay, Edman 08111 Heat says Root Sports carries the games he watches. He's in the Pittsburgh area. He's a big Penguins fan. But for the first round of the playoffs, after that, in the second round, they're basically going to be on NBC or NBCSN. So if you don't have that bought...
Yeah, because they all kind of share rights depending on the rounds, and it's like a bidding war kind of basically. Yeah,
and like Root Sports will show the local games, but if NBC is televising the game nationally, Roots won't have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, David Russell, he gets NHL Center Ice. He's had access to virtually every game across both Canada and the U.S. He finds the coverage, in his case, to be satisfactory. So he's okay with NHL Center Ice. Michael Amaro, he has Game Center. He gets it for free with Rogers. He's a Sabres fan, and he lives in Toronto, which is the perfect world for him.
It is.
He gets outside the Buffalo market, so he can watch everything on Rogers Game Center. So he watches the Game Center to watch his team, and it works well for him. Kiel Anderson writes he's in Minnesota, very happy with the broadcasting in his area. So I presume he's a Wild fan. He's living in their market, so he's good to go.
Cool.
You know, he can watch his team. Stefan Moreno, he actually showed a link to where he watches hockey online. I'm not going to broadcast that because I don't know if it's
not a legitimate.
Yeah, it might not be, but I went on that link and I watched games, and I've been watching a few games on that same link.
Is that how you watch your KHL games?
Maybe. I'm not going to admit to anything, but to me, if I'm watching something that I should be buying, then I'm violating somebody's rights, and someone's losing money.
Yep.
But if I'm watching something I cannot possibly buy, even if I want to, I don't know who's getting hurt by that.
I guess, yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Gina McKay wrote in. She said she's about 100 miles from Washington, D.C. They get all the Capitals games on Comcast Sportsnet. But the only time she can't watch is when they're out west, like in California or Vancouver. They air on CSN Plus or some other station that she doesn't get.
Oh.
And,
interesting. Only when they're out west.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a time zone issue or maybe... And some teams, some sports networks, like Comcast, maybe Roots, I don't know. If they have basketball and hockey, one team's going to take priority over the other if there's simultaneous games going on.
Yeah.
So then they might watch basketball, farm out the hockey to a sub-channel that a lot of people don't have, and then they're upset.
Yeah.
That could be happening too. Heiser 49, South Dakota in the States. There's no blacked out zones because there's no team in his state.
Oh, yeah.
He's in a no man's land, which for a hockey fan, an NHL game
That's amazing, yeah.
is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, good for you. Dylan Kunkin writes, I'm from New Jersey. I'm a Rangers fan, and he's able to watch every game on MSG.
There you go.
Which is great. Zach White, he's in Greensburg and loves the Blackhawks and loves it when his team's on NBC, but when it's not, he can't watch the game because he lives in Greensburg. Now, I took a look here at what Greensburg he was probably talking about because I wasn't really sure. And there is one in Indiana and southeast of Indianapolis, and it might be in a Columbus zone or something like that because the Blackhawks only go so far, and then you're in someone else's territory.
Right.
So I didn't actually do a map look to see whose zone he's in, but that's probably the reason there. Winrar, being an Oilers fan in the Oilers regions, I watch all the games on either Sportsnet West or Sportsnet Oilers. So he's happy. Southern California area, Santa Barbara to be exact, most Americans watch hockey via cable satellite. This is Aidan Lethaby. In my area, Fox Sport and Fox Prime Ticket cover all the Kings and Sucks. He meant Ducks. The rest is from NBC. Cable provider gives us NHL Network for free so I can watch. So there's other, Carson Lambo 724, Samuel Morgan wrote in. Samuel's in Texas, watches all the Stars games, but he's a Minnesota fan. So he has to get the NHL thing.
The NHL thing,
yeah. Ryan Sherbluck says, I live in Alberta. The only games I can't watch are the ones that are broadcast on SNOL, that's Sportsnet Oilers. So it's annoying, but I can watch probably 70-some games of the season, which ain't bad, I guess. In an Oilers fan, the coverage is usually either CBC, Sportsnet West, or SNOL, SNOL. So there you go. Dave Weens is in Vancouver. He thinks the center ice package is well worth it. $250 a year for the, but he likes it. The only problem he has is every now and then there's a game that's not available in HD.
What?
Yeah, like the.
It's 2017.
Yeah, I've heard of that. But some of the games that end up on NHL Center Ice are only the standard definition version.
That's unacceptable.
I agree, but it's happening. So get on that.
What's going on in NHL?
Yeah. KZTB or KZTB Bananas. I'm an Avalanche fan in Montana, so he's good. He has altitude on cable, and he's way to go. Bender B. Rodriguez lives in Edmonton, watches the game on Shaw, gets all the Oilers games on Sportsnet West and all the out-of-market games on the Sportsnet Oilers channel. When it comes to other teams, he has access, through probably his cable to CBC, NBC, Sportsnet, and so forth. And then he says at the end, all NHL hockey should be available to all Canadians, coast to coast. It's our national sport, for crying out loud.
Damn right. Well said, Bender. You comment a lot. I
rock.
appreciate your engagement. Thumbs up to you.
Yeah. Mika Laaksonen, this is in Finland. The NHL is behind the cable online consumer, which is called Viasat. He pays €25 a month for both NHL and KHL. In KHL perspective, they stream all the Jokerit games and a few other games per week, but I could see any NHL game I want as they have 8 special channels to run games. And he watched Jokerit versus Severstal game, and this is me. I actually, this is one of the ones I watched. I watched Jokerit play on that link that I can't talk about. And the rink had a lot of empty seats in it. But I was watching the amount of people also on the live stream. There's over 2,000 people watching, and I was one of them. And it was great. It was great hockey.
It was great.
Yeah. Travis Downing lives in Jacksonville, North Carolina. He watches the Hurricanes from a channel he has to special order, which is Fox Sports South. But the Carolina Panthers and the NFL, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, they're covered everywhere.
Yep.
You know, Pens and Pats fan for life, Yardley, Pennsylvania, not far from Philadelphia. He's a Pens fan, though. So the Penguins are on national television. When they're not, I watch them on Game Center because he would be in the Flyer zone, I guess, so it's good for him. SETI86, this is an interesting one. I talked to you about it before we went on the air. He lives in Switzerland, and he has to pay in order to see all 50 games that his team, which is EHC Cloton, plays, or Cloton. But he's a Lightning fan in the NHL. I watch all the games on NHL Game Center from Switzerland. But when I went to Florida, I was on vacation. He wanted to watch Game Center on his iPad, and he couldn't because he was in a blackout.
So he was visiting from Switzerland.
Yeah.
Closest to his favorite team, and couldn't watch his favorite team.
That's right.
Makes sense. Good job, NHL.
And Mika Laaksonen wrote in afterwards and said, yeah, exactly. You know, he's his same experience. Alexander Kudryadchev lives in Moscow. And more often watching the broadcast on the internet, the social network is a group where the guys are live streaming themselves and comment on these broadcasts in the Russian language. So they actually get the video from somewhere, and then they do their own play-by-play in Russian.
Interesting.
And then you watch them doing the Russian play-by-play of a game maybe from somewhere else. Huh. A couple of guys have even won the competition commentators on Eurosport, and they were invited to comment on the match in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2017.
Wow.
I think that's amazing.
That is amazing.
I think that's great.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, Ice King Glaceon. Really, the thing that bugs me the most about the USA is the fact we can't get every finals game without cable. Meanwhile, I can go and watch the NBA finals in the same time without cable. Just the little things that are so aggravating. Datuch in Connecticut subscribes to NHL Center Ice. He catches all the Red Wings games, which works for him. It's an added bonus of Center Ice is when I'm able to get the Canadian broadcast. That's what happens too in the States. You get Center Ice. You can get the CBC feed
yes, you can.
of something, which he really likes because it allows him to experience hockey like a Canadian viewer would experience hockey, which is great. But when he actually subscribed to the NHL package to even watch his local team, he basically had to unsubscribe because he was blacked out all the time. You know, in
that's
the NHL.
unfortunate.
So, yeah, so similar to what you would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then remember when we talked a little bit about the Wednesday night rivalry thing?
Yeah, the
NBC
joke.
was trying to. Yeah. And one guy wrote, he said, Michael Robert, listening to these two Canadians take Wednesday night rivalry seriously is hilarious. We weren't actually taking it all that seriously, no. I don't think. And one guy, 13 Captain Price says, I can tell you're Canadian. NBC calls literally every Wednesday game Wednesday night rivalry. American fans have been laughing at these for years. Haha, glad you're in on the joke. And we are in on the joke.
Yes.
MoFan10, watch the Blues game on Fox Midwest, even though I live in Arkansas. They're blocked when they will be on NBC or NBCSN. Because I guess Arkansas is close enough to Missouri that
right.
Maybe they're in the Blues zone there. Hoodaman says, my local coverage in NYC is amazing. The Rangers games are on MSG. Islanders and Devils are on MSG as well. NBC and NBCSN have good coverage in my area, especially for the New York Rangers. So if you live in the New York City area,
lots of love for MSG
you're
here.
Gold. MN Hockey 34. Minnesota, we have the state high school hockey tournament. You know, on his TV, but all he has for NHL stuff is the NHL network to watch. Canada has like TSN Hockey Night in Canada. We have Hockey Hub, which is the NHL network. Just in time in California, he enjoys local TV coverage of hockey, but it gets overshadowed by other sports like basketball, football, and baseball. We hear that a lot. So hockey is definitely fourth fiddle to these other teams, or other leagues, rather. It is unfortunate.
But understandable.
Yeah, it makes sense. Kahoo is a Preds fan from Nashville, Fox Sports South, Tennessee to show the game. Same with the Jackets. He lives in Ohio, watches games on Fox Sports Ohio. But when the Jackets play on NBC, Fox Sports Ohio doesn't have the game on. Luckily, NBC is probably available, you know, if it's the main network, pretty well everywhere.
Of course, yeah.
Daniel Hardy, they did Buffalo Columbus because of the Foligno brothers the last couple of years, talking about that rivalry.
Yeah.
And that was his theory as to why that would be called a rivalry. And it's better than anything I could come up with.
It's the only thing.
Yeah. Now we got someone here called New York Rangers Fan 98. surprisingly, despite his name, he's a Montreal Canadiens fan.
Okay.
But he lives in New York. Maybe he just does that so he won't get beaten up in the street
Maybe.
or something, I don't know. Due to the amount of teams in my area, I can watch every Rangers, Islanders, and Devils game along with whichever teams are playing against them on NBC or NBCSN, but can't watch the Canadiens games unless they're playing a New York area team. So for him, he'd have to actually pick up center ice or something. Maybe many more comments to read. They're all, kind of in the same theme. If you're in North America, you have the challenge of blackouts if you're living in your team's zone and want to watch on a better platform than maybe you've got in your local cable. If you're living outside your team zone and you have NHL Center Ice or Game Center Live, whatever they call it now, you're in great shape. You have to spend money, you have to lay out some subscription money, but you're going to be able to watch your team. If you're a general hockey fan, more like Neil, less like me, I'm happy. I'm in the Montreal zone.
You're in the zone. You can watch your team.
I can watch all my Montreal games.
You don't really watch any other hockey unless it's the playoffs.
I'm interested in hockey generally. I want to see the plays of the day. I want to see the best highlights and something cool happen. I want to watch that, but I don't want to sit there and watch a 3-hour hockey game.
You wouldn't sit down and watch a Philadelphia Columbus game on a Wednesday night.
Only if you paid me a lot.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you're in the zone.
But if it's in Columbus and they're scoring a lot, I want to hear that can.
You want to hear the can, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's problems for different reasons. I guess I'm the perfect example because, as I mentioned in the original video that we've done and at the beginning of this video, I'm a Canadiens fan living in a Canadiens zone, which is great. I can see all of the Canadiens games, same as you. But I like to watch other teams play. Sometimes, if the Montreal Canadiens are playing, I'll watch a little bit of that game, but maybe San Jose and LA are playing, and I want to watch San Jose and LA play. Well, I can't do that. I have to get Game Center or NHL Center Ice. And I don't really want NHL Game Center Ice because it's expensive. And if I had it and didn't have cable, then I couldn't watch the Canadiens games because it's blocked out on Game Center or Center Ice.
Yeah.
So I need both. It's very frustrating. So I guess it all depends on what kind of fan you are and where you live. If you live in Minnesota and you're a Minnesota fan and you don't care about any other team, you're probably okay. If you're in Minnesota and you're a Minnesota fan but you want to watch other teams play, you're probably in the same situation as I'm in, and you need both. So it's frustrating, but it's frustrating because this wasn't supposed to happen. When Rogers was supposed to take over, which they have done, there wasn't supposed to be blackouts. I remember there being an announcement. I remember people talking about it. There was articles about how there was no more blackouts. That was the beauty of the deal. That was the beauty of the contract, the new thing with Rogers. No one had to put up with these blackouts. You could just watch whatever game you wanted to watch, and that wasn't the case. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but I have vivid memory of them saying that.
I honestly don't remember, but I remember being surprised because here in our part of Canada, there are 4 TSN channels, or 5. There are 4 Rogers channels.
Yeah.
There's Sportsnet East, Central, West, and Pacific. But if Edmonton is playing Winnipeg on Sportsnet Central, Sportsnet West, they black it out for us.
Right.
Even though Rogers is actually carrying the damn game,
yeah.
They black it out for us because we're not in that zone, and we'd have to watch that game by paying Rogers again.
Yeah.
We're already paying a subscription to Rogers. Have to pay them again to watch Game Center. Come on.
I mean, there's pros to Game Center. You get to watch replays of games. You get to choose camera angles. You can switch back and forth between games at ease. You can watch it on your tablet. You can watch it on your phone. You can watch it on your PlayStation or whatever. It's great. There's a lot of pros, but there's also some cons that come with it. So I guess that's the conversation that we're having is just hearing from people. You guys are hearing from us, creating just more of a conversation in the comments below. And speaking of comments, we really appreciate everyone leaving their comments on the original video.
Thanks. And I didn't get to read them all in the air, but we did read them all.
We did read
every one of them, and they were all very good and thoughtful.
Thank you very much to everyone who took the time to leave a comment, if it was a couple lines or if it was very detailed. We had some very detailed, long-winded comments, and they were tremendous. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. It means a lot. And it's good when the community comes together like that, and we get to bring it all together in one video. So really appreciate that. Thank you guys very much. If you're new to this channel, hope you can hit the subscribe button. Maybe go check out the first video that we did and then come back and check this one out, I guess, and read the comments on this video because they'll be pertinent to the original video and it all comes together. If you like this video, hit the like button and we'll see you in the next one. Adios.